Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down an event that, honestly, created the modern world we're all living in right now. I'm talking about the Industrial Revolution. It's the incredible story of how humanity basically hit the reset button, moving from fields to factories and setting the stage for life as we know it.
Okay, so to really get a grip on this, you gotta look at the before and after. For thousands of years, pretty much everything was based on farming, and things were made by hand. It was a world powered by muscle, plain and simple. Then, bam, in what was really just the blink of an eye, historically speaking, that world got replaced by one run by machines, factories, and mass production.
So how in the world did a shift that massive even begin? You might think it all started in a noisy, smoky factory, right? Well, actually, it started somewhere much quieter, on the farm. Before industry could really take off, something fundamental had to change there first.
See, there was a whole other revolution in agriculture that kicked things off. Suddenly, new techniques meant you could grow way more food with way fewer people. This was a total game changer. Not only could you now feed all the people crowding into cities, but it also created this huge new workforce. All these people who were pushed off the farms and pulled toward the cities looking for a new way to make a living.
This brings up a pretty big question, though. Why Britain? Of all the places in the world, why did this all kick off on one relatively small island? Well, it turns out 18th century Britain had this unique cocktail of ingredients that made it the perfect launch pad.
It really was a perfect storm of conditions. It wasn't just one thing, it was everything at once. They were literally sitting on top of massive, easy-to-reach deposits of coal and iron, the fuel and building blocks of industry. They had huge amounts of cash from a global empire just waiting to be invested. Plus, a stable government that protected inventions, and even a culture that celebrated its engineers as rock stars.
Okay, so we've set the stage. Let's talk about the technology itself, the actual hardware that powered this whole thing. It really boils down to a trinity of innovations in steam, textiles, and iron. And these three fed off each other, creating this incredible, unstoppable cycle of progress.
First up, steam power, the poster child of the revolution, right? Now, James Watt didn't invent the steam engine, not by a long shot. But what he did was take an early clunky design, which was mainly used for pumping water out of mines, and he perfected it. He made it so much more efficient that you could suddenly put a factory anywhere, not just next to a river. It was freedom.
And the impact of this new machinery? It was just insane, especially in making cloth. Before all this, you needed a bunch of people spinning thread just to keep one weaver busy. These new inventions completely flipped that on its head. Suddenly, a single worker could produce what it used to take hundreds to do before. That's a productivity leap of around 500 times. Just try to wrap your head around that.
And finally, none of this works without good, strong, cheap iron. You can't build a new world without the right building blocks. The big breakthrough here was a guy named Abraham Darby figuring out how to use coke, which is just baked coal, instead of charcoal to smelt iron. This little trick unlocked the ability to mass-produce the very metal that everything else, the machines, the factories, the railways, depended on.
So you've got all this new tech, right? But it didn't just change how we make things. Oh no, it completely upended society itself. The whole center of gravity for human life shifted from the quiet village to the noisy factory floor.
And the scale of this shift was just immense. I mean, look at these numbers. In 1750, only about 15% of people in Britain lived in towns. A single century later, that number had jumped over 50%. This was one of the fastest, most dramatic movements of people in all of human history, with millions pouring into new industrial hubs.
This is where we get the factory system, a brand new way of organizing work. For the first time, you bring all the workers and all the machines together under one roof. Life was now ruled by the clock and the relentless pace of the machine, a completely different world from the seasonal rhythms of farm life.
But all this progress, it wasn't all sunshine and roses. Not even close. This gleaming new world of industry was a real double-edged sword, and it cast some incredibly dark shadows.
Yeah, this era was full of contradictions. On one side, you have this explosion of wealth, a brand new middle class, and suddenly everyday people can afford things they could only dream of before. But the flip side, for the working class actually making it all happen, it was brutal. We're talking grueling 14-hour days, incredibly dangerous conditions, kids working in factories, and life in polluted, disease-ridden slums.
And this wasn't an exaggeration. People at the time, like Friedrich Engels, wrote about what they saw with their own eyes.
He described the back streets of cities where people were crammed into shacks with dirt floors where the rivers were literally green from all the filth. It's a really stark reminder of the massive human cost of all this progress.
But people didn't just take this lying down. They fought back. You had groups like the Luddites who, literally smashed the machines they blamed for taking their jobs. More importantly, this is where we see the birth of the first real trade unions, people banding together to demand a fair shake. And, believe it or not, it's also where the first environmental laws start to appear, trying to deal with all that choking pollution.
And this whole thing didn't stay contained in Britain for long. Its effects rippled out across the entire planet, permanently redrawing the map of the global economy.
This is what historians call the Great Divergence. I mean, just look at this chart. Before this all kicked off, most of the world's stuff was made outside of Europe. But by 1900, the tables had completely turned. The industrialized West was now the world's workshop, dominating global production and creating a whole new power dynamic that we still see today.
And here's the thing. We are still living inside the world that this revolution built. The ideas of mass production, global supply chains, rapid transport, that's not just history. That's the operating system of our 21st century lives. The blueprint was forged in the heat and steam of those first factories.
And that leaves us with a really big question. The first industrial revolution remade the world with steam and steel. So you have to wonder, are we living through the next great transformation right now, one powered by data and AI? Understanding that first great disruption, its causes, its costs, and its world-changing consequences might just be the best map we have for navigating our own turbulent times.